Hello and welcome to our ISTE Lib webinar on Digital Learning Day. Today I am so excited to welcome Kristina Holzweiss, who's going to talk to us about making a difference, integrating community service in making activities, which I am so excited about. So thank you so much, Kristina, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to turn it over to you so you can introduce yourself. For those of you watching on our YouTube, you can ask any questions or make any comments in the YouTube chat, or you can use the hashtag ISTELibs in order to ask a question. And what we'll do is we'll have about a 30-minute presentation from Kristina, and then we'll bring in all of your questions to be answered then. So take it away.
Well, happy Digital Learning Day, everyone, today. Today we're going to talk about mostly low-tech things, ironically, on integrating community service and making activities, but there'll be a few high-tech things that you can do. So I'm Kristina Holzweiss. I was chosen from Scholastic School Library Journal as a 2015 School Librarian of the Year. But I started as an English teacher. I think I secretly always wanted to be a librarian. I began as an English teacher. I taught 7th grade English for 9 years. I received a certificate in ed tech, educational technology, but there weren't any positions back then. So how am I going to connect literacy, reading, and technology? Well, of course, I'm going to become a school librarian. So I became a school librarian, and that was 14 years, and I just became an ed tech specialist. But basically, I'm an English teacher, librarian, ed tech specialist, all those things wrapped into one. And as you know, every librarian, you're not just one thing. You're not just encouraging literacy, you're encouraging making, you're encouraging technology. So we wear so many different hats. So today we're going to talk about making a difference and what you can do in your library, and even bring it to your entire school community, making activities that really can engage students in community service. So a lot has been discussed lately about maker spaces and maker education, STEM education, but sometimes there needs to really be a purpose. There's a time and place for play, but there's a time and place for purpose, and I believe not every purpose needs to be academic. We really need to focus on our students as children. And so sometimes we have to think about not just the actual item that we're making in our maker spaces, but how you're making a difference through the act of making. So in your library, in your school, you probably have some low tech, some medium tech, some high tech, some digital technology that you're working with, maybe paper engineering or robotics or hour of code. And kids are engaged. They're having fun. They're learning. You might have kids that you didn't think would be as engaged in a library. Maybe you're special education students, ESL students, and they are having fun. They're really learning, they're communicating. But our students need to know they make a difference. When you connect with a child or anyone's feelings and their opinions and their heart, that's when the learning transforms. And that's when students say, oh, I remember your class or I remember your library, they're not necessarily remembering what they read or what they learned. They're remembering the feeling that they had in your space and how they felt having you as their teacher. So here are some reasons. We need to help, our kids need to know how to make a difference for therapy, helping their own souls and their own feelings. And then empathy, it can go outward, and then unity, how they can come together. So we start from inside ourselves, then beyond, and then into a global idea. And these are just some ideas that you can use in your library or your school. So therapy. So you look at this and you say, well, call the wild old yeller war dogs? Well, when I started as an English teacher, our honor students read The Call of the Wild, and our Regent students read Old Yeller. So you see a dog theme going here. And so each year we would write letters advocating for a war memorial. because I thought it was important not just to talk about, these novels, but how can we really appreciate the dogs in our lives. And it was really good therapy. I hadn't thought about it until when I was putting this presentation together. I had one of my honor students create an old yellow, no, a Call the Wild scrapbook, and depicting the different events in the novel through movie tickets or help wanted ads and things like that. And one student didn't hand it in, and he was a really good student. And I was wondering, why didn't he hand this in? A day or two passed, and he still hadn't handed it in. Now I know something's up. His dog had passed away. This was a really difficult project for him to do with his dog who recently passed away. So I thought, wow, I didn't know that. So let's do something that can basically celebrate that dog's life. And so just writing simple letters, advocating for charities or for causes, that's something very simple that anyone could do. And you can really connect with your social studies classes, your English classes. This is really a really good idea. Another therapy is people love dogs. So what we did recently, you see up in the top right hand corner, two pictures of bandanas. So we made dog bandanas in our innovation lab recently. And then on the bottom, you see a tug toy made out of old t-shirts. And on the left side, we have students who took old t-shirts as well, and they cut right underneath the armpit, and they stuffed them to make pillows. So one of our students recently who came to the innovation lab with their class to make those bandanas, she brought them to the local animal shelter. So this could be any animal shelter. You can collect items to bring, but actually having the kids make items out of old t-shirts, bandanas, it's really easy to do and not very expensive. This project is very dear to my heart. This is a picture of my sister, Larissa, who had passed away in 2005. And it was on her way to school. She was a high school student, and this was a block away from school. And so on her birthday, we celebrated her spirit, and the kids made artwork to donate to the local Ronald McDonald House. So the kids really, I mean, I worked through my own therapy by working with this project with these students, but it was a lot of discussions coming up about how my own students had losses in their lives. And so we worked through this together. I also visited the local Ronald McDonald House with a club. You see that picture in the upper left-hand corner. And a friend of mine, I knitted hats for babies, and we had toys from the toy making club, and we collected cereal and dishwashing liquid and all kinds of toiletries. And we actually visited the Ronald McDonald House. That was such a powerful moment because the kids could see the effects of their fundraising, of their collecting. And in fact, I don't have a picture, but the kids made their own flower pens, just taking silk flowers and pens, and they sold them. And then they raised money to buy they were called Bratz dolls, True Hope dolls. And they were dolls that had no hair. And so we donated to kids who had cancer at the Ronald McDonald House. And on the bottom right, you see a picture of my mom. And in memory of my sister, she donated fleece. And we created blankets, no-sew blankets. We just tied knots to donate to Project Linus. So if you have a Project Linus group near you, you might want to work with them. And if not, you can just bring them to the local hospital or shelter, or even a homeless shelter, or create your own Project Linus group. The Hug Project is for overseas soldiers, and what they do is they collect toiletries, candy, those kinds of things, but they also collect these flat teddy bears. So you just take any scraps of fabric and use this template and cut the teddy bear and use just a little bit of stuffing because they don't want it to be too big for the boxes. And it's a flat teddy bear, and kids whose family members could be in the armed forces, this could be very therapeutic for them because as they're missing family members, they know that they're helping other people's family members. And this was actually a student who just stopped by the library one day, and we were using the lanyard and the beads for binary bracelets around hour of code, and he just started making a bracelet, just random colors. Um, and I said, oh, that's really nice. It looks, really pretty. And he said, I'm making this for my grandmother. My grandmother is in the hospital right now, and I'm making her this bracelet. So when you think of a community service thing, making projects, you don't have to think of something that is global. You don't have to think of anything that's really big. Just think of the local community and just think of your kids and what they need. And then create a kids' kindness cart. Put on a cart. There's a company, well, not even a company, a nonprofit called Sending Smiles to Sis. And if you go on their website, they will send you these cards. They're postcards in different colors. And your kids can write jokes and draw pictures. And then they even they send you an envelope, and you send all of the cards back in the envelope. It's already pre-postage. And they will take those cards and they will get them stamped, and they will send them to sick children. So this costs you nothing. You could put it by your circulation counter. You could do it maybe right before the holidays. And I highly, highly recommend you have a button maker in your library. Kids can create buttons for different charities, different causes. They could write inspirational quotes. Put that on your kindness cart, and then you don't have to worry about teaching kids how to do things. Just put very simple things that they could do on their own. And you never know when a kid just needs a 5 minutes of the day just to feel, I guess, more calm and less stress, and maybe just work out some emotions. Nursing home. My grandfather had been in a nursing home, and I visited him all the time. Kids have family members in nursing homes. This child on the left-hand side took an old Christmas card and recycled it, made a beautiful display for her grandmother in the nursing home. You can take socks, go up to the local dollar store and get puffy paint, and the kids can design the bottom of socks. So when the people in the nursing homes walk around in socks, it makes them non-slip. And even foster homes, you can take old clean t-shirts and cut them up and create superhero capes. And even better, why not go to foster homes and work with the children and create their own superhero capes? Make them feel empowered, make them feel special, that like they can take on the world. Meals on Wheels, soup kitchens, homeless shelters, such an easy thing to do. Just get some bags at the dollar store, have them donated. You can definitely reach out to your local civic associations, the Lions Club, the Rotary Club. They'd be more than happy to help fund this. Get some bags, have the kids decorate them. Have a nice day, thinking of you. And then again, go to the dollar store and put toiletries, or even better, have a drive. Tell all your teachers and all your students. I do this all the time. When I go to hotels, I take the little soaps, I take the little shampoos, and then I collect them, and then I put them in these bags, and I bring them to the local homeless shelter. So that's a really great thing to do. It doesn't cost you anything. Make them for Meals on Wheels, and soup kitchens. See if they have those paper placemats. Ask them to bring them to your library and have kids decorate the placemats, and then bring them back. And so when the people sit down to eat, they have a beautiful hand-drawn paper placemat that the kids have donated. And this is also a very special project called the Memory Project. And this was a project that my sister had participated in when she was in high school. And what you do is you contact the Memory Project, and for $15 per portrait, they will send you portraits of children around the world, who basically are either homeless or living in homes where they don't really have a lot of possessions. And then your students can draw portraits of them, and then they hand deliver those portraits. They will send you a video, but it's not specific to each student because there's so many portraits that they bring over. But they will show you a video of a group of students receiving a group of portraits. So it's really wonderful, and it helps kids understand about other people all around the world. This A Reason to Smile is actually a nonprofit that a friend of mine, Donna Rosenblum from Nassau Boces, is part of. And so it's a nonprofit organization, and there's a school in Africa. And what they do is, and they fundraise for the school. And so on the bottom, you see that kids are making bracelets. They can make bracelets, and then they can sell them and then fundraise money for the school in Africa. And there's a book, Mima's Reason to Smile. And because my friend Donna, I actually student taught with her. She was a librarian. I was an English teacher at the time. A lot of things are literacy based, and they have a trunk. Here's a beautiful picture with items and artifacts and books that you can really make a wonderful literacy and empathy and making unit. Also here on the bottom left, we have my friend Ellen from the Half Hollow Hills Community Library, who worked with Project Enable to do to 3D print the prosthetic hands. And then follow my friend Angela Abend. She works in Oceanside. She's a gifted and talented teacher. And each year she takes one of the Reynolds Brothers books, and they work around a whole unit, and they fundraise. So this year was I Am Peace by Susan Verdi and Reynolds, and they raise money for the Out on a Limb Foundation, which also is for prosthetics for kids in needy countries, and they are actually located in Oceanside. So these are really worthwhile causes. Camp Dreamcatcher is also a wonderful organization. They have camps for kids whose lives have been affected by HIV and AIDS, and so you can buy brand new pillowcases. You can buy them on Amazon or the local Target, and use fabric markers and make a beautiful design and send it to them at Camp Dreamcatcher. And then those kids at the camp will have a wonderful hand illustrated pillowcase that they can use while they're at camp and then take home with them. My kids in the middle school were too young to participate in Habitat for Humanity. So instead, we got a large poster board, and we created welcome home signs. So when the families came home to their new home built by Habitat for Humanity, they would have wonderful welcome home signs. Also, little dresses for Africa. You can hand sew, or using the simple sewing machines, take pillowcases. And there is a pattern on the website, and it will show exactly how to cut part of the pillowcase and add a ribbon, and very easily you transform that pillowcase into a summer dress for a child in Africa. And one of my favorite projects is our charity pitch fest. So we ran an event a few years back called Slime, Students of Long Island Maker Expo, and it was almost like a mini Maker Faire. And we used Flipgrid, and what the task was to promote a charity within 3 minutes on Flipgrid, and then the top 5 would be invited to come to our event and pitch their favorite charity. I am a big fan of Shark Tank, so that's what we did. And we sent the link, the Flipgrid link, out all over Long Island, and we had 76 groups of children pitch their favorite charities. And so here are some of the images of those students who are pitching their favorite charities. And our local library organization, Suffolk School Library Media Association, they donated the prize money. They donated $500, and then we separated that money out by first, second, third, fourth, and fifth place. So every team brought home a trophy, and they brought home a check to donate to their favorite charity. So this was using technology, but the kids really had to research the charity, and they had to persuade people. And it was a wonderful project. The kids had to really work on their presentation skills. If you've ever seen the Kindness Rocks project, just simply having kids draw, paint rocks together. Maybe we have in my former school, we had a 9/11 garden, and so we put rocks there. Kids can leave them in the community. They can leave them. Um, they could leave it in an outside garden, a beautification project, but it really brings the kids together, and so they can spread kindness through the Kindness Rocks project. Every year, I would say maybe for the last 15 years, we've participated in the Macys Make-A-Wish letter writing campaign. And so each year, I send out, the information to all those teachers and students in the school, and they write letters to Santa. This year, I actually made a star and had the kids draw or write a wish. And then I deliver all those letters to Macys, and Macys donates $1 for every letter or every wish to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So easy to do. Again, make a stack of these, leave them at your circulation counter, send it out to your school community through a PDF, have the kids download them, print them up, and then just bring the whole stack there. And it's just an easy way to connect making and writing with making a difference. This year I discovered Vineyard Vines, and it's a whales for a cause. So kids decorate whales, or even teachers as well. Anyone who wants to decorate a whale, and you cut out the whale, you color it, take a photograph, and share it on social media, on Twitter or Instagram, or I think probably Facebook as well. Hashtag Whales for a Cause, and they donate money. So this past year, they donated books. And the year that's on this presentation, they donated lunches. So each year, Vineyard Vines partners with another charity, and all it is a piece of paper. The kids are coloring whales, and then you don't even have to mail them. Just put them on social media, hashtag Whales for a Cause, and you have a wonderful making project. And then who does not love the little free libraries? Have your kids in that technology class build a little free library. This one actually, on the top right, my father-in-law made, and then I had a group of kids who painted it, and then donated some books, and then asked the local railroad station, asked the local hospital, asked people if you can leave your little free library there. So you could see at the top left, I went to a doctor's appointment, and they had just a carton. It was not an official little free library, but it was just taking a book. I went to Bryant Park in the city, and the local library had their cart there that you could just take out books. And then, to make it really personal, make a bookmark. You can use just regular construction paper, but if you really want to make it interesting and save some money, go up to your local hardware store, go to Lowe's or go to Home Depot, and take a bunch of the paint chips and get some scrapbook punches, and just punch and put some ribbon, cut out designs, and put a personalized bookmark into each book. And that just really adds a nice touch. Because what we really need to remember is the maker movement is important. It gives our kids a way to express themselves, a hands-on learning, higher level thinking, bringing in research. There's so many different aspects to the maker movement that are so important, but we need to remember that the maker movement is a movement of people. It's people coming together and making a difference. It's not all that stuff that's in your library or in your makerspace or your STEM lab or what have you. It is the people who are in there, the librarians who are in there, the teachers that they're collaborating with, the community at large that you're helping. The maker movement is a movement of people, not of things. And that is our last slide. So I guess we're ready for some Q&A.
Oh my goodness. I need to go back and rewind and play and pause and play and pause and play and pause. I'm just overwhelmed by the new things. I mean, I thought I knew this very well. I'm just amazed by the number of projects that you and your kids have been involved in, the kinds of things that you're sharing. I know that's not a question. Let me look to see what questions there are. I think mostly we've been saying, wow, oh, I never heard of that. I never heard of that. I know certainly I have done that several times. I don't see any questions. Just wondering if you do have a question, and you're watching, you can use the ISTE Lib hashtag on Twitter, or certainly if you're in the YouTube live. I see a few of you in here, but I haven't seen any questions. I do have a question while we're waiting. What inspired you to get started on this journey?
I think it was a lot of that dog project, and that must have been a bit. I've been teaching this my 24th year, so that must have been at least 20 years ago that we connected. That when that student said to me that he didn't have his project, and I said, why? What was the reason for that? And I'm wondering, is that a reason why a lot of our students don't do things? Not because their dog passed away, but because there's some kind of emotional barrier
Mm-hmm.
that they're not doing their best, and they're not connecting. And so that made me think. And then 9/11, that I really thought about 9/11. And that year, I saw in the newspaper, there was an article about a young woman, and she had, I think it was 7 siblings, and all of her siblings were adopted with Down syndrome. And she was
Mm.
the only one who was biological and didn't have Down syndrome. And
Wow.
so we, as a class, all of my students on my team, all 130 of them, we wrote them Christmas cards just because I was inspired by their story. And then
Mm-hmm.
9/11 happened, and we wrote Christmas cards to the local police department as well. And I just, I put them all together in a beautiful box, and I delivered them. And I think it was just that it wasn't so much making back then. It was that way of having my kids find a way to say thank you
Mm-hmm.
and appreciate just through writing. And letter writing is the simplest thing you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think that's how it really started.
I know that, I mean, people say, oh, there are so many bad things that happen in the world. And for me, a lot of what you're talking about and a lot of the things that I do in my own library is about hopeful action. I feel like we could be overwhelmed by all this negativity, but if we give our students the means to do something, that I call hopeful action, I think that just makes all the difference. These are amazing opportunities for kids.
Kids, you know, I I was a middle school educator for 23 years, and the irony is when I was in junior high back then, I hated it. I didn't like it at all, didn't like my librarian, and she was a bunhead. She was, I asked a friend for a pencil, and she was already on, what are you asking for a pencil for? Um,
Um,
and so I think really in middle school, they have a lot of that teenage angst, and they feel like they don't have power because they're always being told, by their parents what to do and by their teachers what to do.
mm,
And I feel like when they feel like I can do something about this, I can make a change. I have value. I have a voice. I think that will help a lot of the kids who sometimes don't do their best and sometimes don't act the way they should. It's because they feel there's something, they're getting something out of not being part of another group of kids. A lot of kids who are in gangs because they feel that sense of belonging, a sense of, I guess, family that they
mhm.
don't feel anywhere else. And if we can do that for our kids in our schools, maybe we can stop this vicious cycle.
Yeah, I love that. And I know that social emotional learning seems to be the buzzword, but for me, it's so much more than that. And a lot of what you've shared today really gets at that deeper level, right? That ability to sort of see through and help others and help themselves as a result. I am not seeing any questions. Hold on. Yes. Erin Clanton is asking, how did you keep everyone's project organized? Did kids store their projects with you while they worked on them or took them home?
Okay, well, the past year, I was fortunate. We had a whole wall that was empty, And I used to have a secretary. So we decided to take that secretary's desk out. I had already gotten rid of my desk. I just stayed at the circulation counter. So they ditched my desk, which gives you valuable real estate. We ditched the former secretary's desk and we got high bookcases. And so that gave us more room. And I did some weeding because we packed up all 20,000 books because we getting new carpet, which is actually a good thing. When you're faced with remodeling, it's actually a good time to weed. And so that gave us some extra space on the bookcases. So some bookcases that were in the back of the library that weren't facing us, making gets messy. So we found places in the back of the library and empty bookcases. And I saved boxes. So I was saving Xerox boxes and trays. And we had a class set of Chromebooks. I saved every Chromebook box. They had handles on them. And I saved every iPad box because then I could put their names on them and we could store those things in them. For really big objects, we had a really high cart, and it was for pottery. But I really liked it because it had shelves and you could take out the shelves and you can make the shelves taller or shorter. And so those really big projects, they were not they could fit there. They were, they had room because it was almost modular. I could change the size of it. But I always save boxes. Weeding gives you lots of space, and always look for furniture that does double duty.
That's great. I thank you, Erin, for that question because it didn't even occur to me. And you're right, making is messy. So definitely appreciate that. And those, Linda is saying those recycling ideas are amazing. You're right. Save those boxes. You never know when you'll need them. That's awesome. I don't see any other questions. I can't thank you enough for sharing your expertise and your passions with us. I just want to
mind if I just mentioned funding for this?
Oh, great idea.
Funding becomes a big issue, if you don't mind.
Yes.
But some of these supplies, require money. So I'm no longer fundraising through Donors Choose, but we had fundraised for my library about almost $100,000 through Donors Choose for technology and these craft supplies. So I highly recommend Donors Choose because you can make a project as small as $200. And one of my sponsors for these kindness projects was a professor that I had met at a local conference. And so she would help me fundraise these things. And then in return, I visit her class once a year. And I talk to the students who are going to be teachers about the value of libraries and the benefits of collaborating with your librarian. So it's actually a win-win. And I highly recommend getting involved with your civic associations, the local, like I said, the Rotary Club, the Lions Club, find small grants. When you say you want to make a difference, people will donate. And let's say, paint and scissors and glue, that's fine. But let's say you want to buy a Cricut, like a vinyl cutter. Think of a project that you can use that for. And then when the project is finished, you still have the Cricut. Think of all those, maybe one of the items is a 3D printer. If you want to 3D print the hands, the prosthetic hands, and put them together, you might have a civic association who might help you. And then you could also use a 3D printer for other things. So once you talk about these things with people, and donations, I was going on Craigslist looking for anyone who's getting rid of old fabric, Facebook, donate your, if you have a bunch of bags, donate them to me. If you have, pens and paper and scissors and glue, people will donate those kinds of things. So donations and just asking for handouts, it really does help.
That's wonderful. And I think because you make such a personal connection that people will be more likely to donate, right? Because they know you're making a difference. I love that. So there is a question from Erin. Have you ever let each child pick their own passion project, or do you try to have everyone do a similar project?
It really depends on the class that's coming in. I would work with different classes, and if they only had a few days, I would direct it. I would say we're doing this kind of passion project within this realm, and you could choose something within that. But this way I knew I had enough supplies. I knew how to set up the library. There had to be some structure. If I had more time, which everyone needs, then you can get into more personalized and individualized. But you have constraints, and sometimes those constraints are annoying, but sometimes those constraints help you become more creative.
That's a good point. How do we, how are we creative within our constraints? Okay, well, thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
Just a reminder to everyone out there, to our ISTE Lib friends, that the ISTE Lib PLN actually has another webinar this evening at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. It's called Fighting the Cuts 2019, and it's being led by John Kraska of Every Library. And again, you can find it in the same place you found it, this particular webinar. It's at librariansnetwork.weebly.com. You can find us on Twitter at ISTELib, and we look forward to learning with you. I know I look forward to going back through this webinar and finding every single organization. I know some of them were shared on Twitter, but certainly such a wealth of information. So thank you again, and good night, everyone.
Good night.